want to thank the people attending today, both attendees and and panelists. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second, and I'll kind of prime why we're here today. My name is Brandon McLaughlin. I'm the Emerging Professional Director for AIA Las Vegas. And really the need for this event came from over the last 2.5 months now. Obviously, we've been in a different position as an industry, and I started receiving multiple messages from not only emerging professionals here in Nevada, but also throughout the Western United States about different companies having to change their staffing levels. And, you know, at least for myself and probably people a little bit younger than me even, that it's an uncertain time right now to be a young architect. And so really we wanted to connect some of the fellows who maybe have seen some of these things before, and then also what some opportunities are coming out of stuff like this. I mean, certain economic realities are not unforeseen in the past. So a lot of you have weathered a lot of these different storms and the way they look. So we broke out today in a couple different areas. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of see what it is you're seeing from maybe a higher leadership level, and how you can enlighten some of the emerging professionals as to what's going on within your firms. Talk about some of the things I'd say I called the legalese, and that's why we had Maggie in particular on here, about kind of say you are in a position as an emerging professional and something happens to your job prospect and what you need to know that you need to do right throughout this. And then also some opportunities, so some non-traditional paths that you guys foresee or you've seen colleagues go through. So really we'll touch on those 3 points. And so with that, I'll give just about each individual probably 30 seconds to a minute, sorry, just to introduce yourself. So Ed, do we want to start with you?
Sure. Ed Vance, EVNA Architects. I think you asked us to talk about the size of our firm, years in the profession, just slightly fewer than John. But I guess it's coming on 40 years now. Size of our firm, just under 20. Type of work we do: hospitality, healthcare, and commercial. That's probably enough.
Yeah, good. Craig, do you want to go?
Yeah, hi, Craig Galati, and I've been in the profession since I graduated college in 1983, so I don't know how many years that is, but a long time. And practiced primarily in Las Vegas. I have worked for a number of different firms here, and prior to coming over and becoming partners with Ray Lucchese and eventually forming LGA. I'm a graduate from the University of Idaho, which is the best school, by the way. And
in Idaho.
Well, it definitely is the best school in Idaho. Our practice has 17 people right now, and we practice primarily in visitor experience type of work. So kind of manifests itself in museums, libraries, visitor centers, interpretive centers, parks and recreation, and schools. And that's kind of the nutshell what our practice is about.
Yes, thank you. And then of the Johns, when do you want to pick?
All right, I'm Jon Sparer. I graduated from the Ohio State University and moved to LA after that. There was no work going on when I graduated in the Midwest. In fact, they took us on tours of architects' offices, and the first one we went to, guys were packing boxes. They were packing up their desks. So it was really sad. But there was work in the West Coast. So I moved out west and worked in LA and Beverly Hills for about 4 years before coming here in 1981. So I've been in Vegas for a long time. 39 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Started off with Marnell Correo, design build. John hired me. Hotel casinos, and was there for 19 years. Took a few years off, and then started YWS with two ex-Marnell friends of mine, Tom Worker and Richard Youngblood. And we started that right after 9/11, or right before 9/11. So our timing. In fact, when I joined Marnell, there was a recession here in town as well. I was lucky to keep
It was
my
right
job.
after the fire.
Yeah, it was right
It's
after
actually-
the
It was right
fires.
after the MGM fire when you joined. Yep.
So my history, and I've gone through a lot of those at the band time, even to open up our own office. YWS, we ended up being international. We had offices in Singapore, Beijing, Macau, and Tulsa, going after Indian casinos. We did resorts, hotel, casinos. Also did a Jewish temple in Henderson and the Gay and Lesbian Center downtown. We ended up with about 60 or 70 people, I think, spread out. But I retired now 7 years ago. And that's it.
Okay.
Your turn.
So I'm John Klai, and 42 years ago in June, I migrated west and landed in Las Vegas, never intending to work or live here. And by July 18th, I took employment with Marnell. And that was my first and only job, and it was Caesars. And I left the firm and Caesars in 1991. And we, together with Dan Juba, we formed Klai Juba Wald, now Wald Architects and Architecture and Interiors. And about 3 years ago, we became a full comprehensive service to the hospitality industry with full interiors and architecture. And we've grown the firm considerably and have been doing larger works countrywide. And so it's good, and it's I said we all have our challenges, and I think ours may be just the size of the firm that we've got right now. And again, hearing Ed and Craig talking about workloads and whatever else, would you like to imagine that the confidence of owners will come back? It's going to take some time, so it's called patience.
How many employees?
I'm not. I would say that we're plus 70 right now.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you. We're really excited to have each of you. I think each of you brings a unique perspective on the type of work you do and the size of firms. So that's why we invited this diverse group here. So I'll jump right into it with some questions and remarks. I think, like I mentioned, the economic outlook, and this is, I'm paraphrasing from the AIA Economic Outlook report last Wednesday that was given. And I mean, for the architecture industry at large, there's some big indicators. And so I'll open up for questions as well as highlight some of the summary points. So, I mean, they're reporting that over 50% of firms expect anywhere from 5 to 50% reductions in staff. And so far, 20% of firms have either eliminated positions, furloughed employees, or reduced either to part-time or reduced hours. We're seeing, billing indexes in double the amounts you see from 2008. And some of the indicators that AIA has long tracked, such as Dow Jones, 30-year mortgage originations, crude oil production, and consumer sentiment sales have all dropped at least a quarter, 25% roughly. So all those indicate that I think there's going to be some sort of economic downturn, and I think that's the biggest alarm to some emerging professionals. But I'll allow you guys to kind of tee it up here. I know some of you were in the roundtable a few weeks ago called The New Normal, and that was an at-large AIA event. So kind of hearing what you see or what you said during that meeting, as well as some of the points on this economic outlook. Can you summarize your positions that some of your firms are taking as a result of the pandemic? Ed, do you want to start?
Sure, there's a lot to unpack in
Yeah.
statement there. It's kind of, I think first part about your comment was where do we see the economy? Was a function of a broken system that all kinds of bubbles and economic structural difficulties that transcended and lasted a lot longer than this one will. This was completely unforeseen, although some will say they saw it coming, but we were unprepared for it. It had nothing to do with what we were doing, except that we're already starting to see the green shoots of new business opportunities coming before us. I thought the world was coming to an end real quick here. I thought these were company killer kind of statistics that we were seeing. And we work in the private sector. So I will tell you that every firm is going to have a different story to tell you about what their workload is. Some of my colleagues, our colleagues, are seeing a massive shutdown in their work. Others, for example, I was talking to a friend of mine in Michigan who works on schools, but their backlog is solid and they've not missed a beat. In fact, they've hired some people. We've laid off a couple, but I'm anticipating with some of the proposals I'm seeing requested that we may actually have to hire a few folks back, adding to our staff level here. There are a lot of market sectors that have been affected in different ways. We're watching airlines just tank, but their stocks were up today. But again, the stock market is one economic indicator that's telling you what's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah.
So we've got to live through that first. They're always looking ahead. What we're doing now is we're in the trenches as we see it. And the challenges we're going to have is, what do our clients see? And if your clients are forward thinking, and as some of ours are, they're getting ready now, assuming that we're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy. And I'm seeing that the lending markets are ready, willing, and able to lend to those projects as long as they have a solid project that they're proposing on. So it's not as bleak and as dark as I was seeing 60 days ago. But we're not going to, the V recovery that everyone keeps talking about may end up looking more like an L or a U, because so many of the markets throughout this economy are going to have some systemic and long-term damage to them, and it's going to take a long time for them to recover. And that'll affect all of us, because if you shut down all of these markets, then we get kicked to the curb because nobody's building the restaurants, nobody's going to be building the office buildings. And that's a couple of projects we got shut down with, speculative office buildings. Well, if the new norm is to work from home, what do I need an office building for? So that's what we're going to start seeing. And we have to be nimble enough to react to that, and start positioning ourselves to make sure that market share that's expanding is something that we need to get in front of. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Craig, you want to add?
Yeah, let me talk. So I guess first of all, I agree 100% with Ed that this is not at all like the 2008, 2009, which, by the way, is funny. My firm never felt that one until 2011, but then we got hit so hard it was almost like we felt like we might have to shut down. But the difference is that was a housing crisis and a mortgage and a financial and banking issues. The banks are solid right now.
Yep.
The mortgage rates are solid right now. The lending is solid right now. What I think is going to be different, what's really different for me right now is the level of uncertainty. I mean, in 2008, we knew it was coming, right? And we knew there was nothing we could do to stop it. It was coming. We had to prepare ourselves. We had to be ready for it. This one just, boom, happened. And the uncertainty of when it will be over or what is unclear, because it's about fear. And until there's a vaccine or there's something, I mean, you think about it, if there was a vaccine tomorrow, I think everybody would go out and everybody would spend. There is pent up demand for spending. And we're a consumer economy, and the minute that it opens up, people will start spending again, and it will start going out and they'll start doing things. And, you know, a state like ours is driven by, three things, right? Gaming tax, sales tax, and property tax. Well, property tax is the only one that's stayed constant right now. Sales tax has dwindled, and gaming tax, obviously, we know what's happened with that. No revenue going on in the gaming sector. So I worry more about, for our firm, who works primarily in the public sector, I'm more concerned about next year than I am about this year, because we have projects that are ongoing and are going to continue to go. But next year, there might not be the tax money and revenues in the counties and cities and stuff that was what generally keeps us moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm optimistic that could flip, and could flip rather quickly. But I think we're going to have a year lag in terms of the government sector work. And we're trying to position ourselves for more private work right now, as we're waiting. And the only other thing I would say is about the government work. The federal government is going to throw some cash at this issue to help our profession, and primarily construction profession, which is going to lag a little bit behind us. They're going to throw money at that. If you remember the AIA, whatever that was called last time, recession, we're going to have something like that that's going to throw money into the economy from the federal government. So if you have federal contracts or are interested in getting more federal contracts, I think there's going to be work there.
Okay. John, any comment?
Well, I agree. I think Ed and Craig are absolutely right. Certainly that I'm encouraged that this is definitely not like it was in 2008. And
it's a health crisis.
It's a health crisis, and it is fear. And it's the unknown too. It's what is the new normal? What are we going back to? One of the first casualties you saw was Sweet Tomatoes, as a brand and as a restaurant, as a company.
Mm-hmm.
They just said, we can't deal with this. We're gone. The buffets at the casino. It's okay. Well, that's an easy thing to just close up. But what is the new normal for the buffets? Might be good remodeling projects for us as we all come to figure that out. But John and I were just talking the other day, as the casinos are opening, and we're surprised and really encouraged that they're opening up already. We, as a town, Las Vegas, we only have one chance to do this right. If we become a hot spot, or if it's unsafe to come to Las Vegas, I'm not going anywhere near there. That'll kill this town for a really long time. So the casinos are taking it really seriously. I'm surprised they're not demanding that any guests have to wear masks, because that's their decision. But it's what is the new normal? When you look at what runs the casinos and really runs this state, the gaming revenues, when John and I first moved here, they were 90%, 95% of what the casino's income was gaming. Everything else was throwaway. The restaurants, the shows, there was really no shopping to speak of. And now it's gaming revenues are 30%. It's all about the entertainment, all about the experiential stuff that right now is gone. And how do you shift? How do you attract people? People coming to Vegas, not so much to gamble, they were coming for the experiences. Yeah. So what does that look like? What's the new norm?
What's our new hook?
And that's where, as architects, working with the clients of just, okay, how do we redesign that kind of experience? What is it?
Gaming is one thing. Again, like John is saying, right now, it's probably 30% of the bottom line of what large facilities are doing. I look at it that right now we may have a blessing in disguise going on with our high temperatures and the season that it is, because it's going to give us a chance to have some soft openings and see what it's all about for a good 3 months before the world really starts to fully discover Vegas. We're hoping that California has missed Vegas and that they'll come back like so many did in the Arizona tribal casinos But again, all that is to be, we'll see that when it all happens. Because what are they coming for? If gaming is 30% and entertainment, and the nightclubs, the day clubs, all of that, where everything else were really the big monies, what are they going to do now when we already know that not that many are infatuated with gaming? And especially the international travel that might be more infatuated with gaming. It's all a lesson to be learned right now.
Well, one thing about Las Vegas is, and we've lived here almost 40 years, you've lived here 41 or 42 years, we've seen it reinvent itself now. Every 10 or 15 years, it is what is the new Las Vegas. And I tell you what, it's going to happen. I don't know what it is. I'm not that smart.
Yes, you are, John.
But the good news, I think, for everybody listening is, I can't speak, I don't even have an office anymore, but it definitely feels different. And the projects, they didn't all just stop like they did in 2008.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me right into the next set of questions I had. And I think there's been some comparisons to 2008. I'll just clarify, the economic outlook was comparing it as far as billings was related. So they were saying that billings were comparable to a downturn. But yeah, that's one indicator. I think, Ed, you mentioned it's one indicator in a whole slew of them. So my question more so becomes, I mean, economic uncertainty in our profession is fairly cyclical, at least from the early stage I can see. So well, many of you have probably been through 2, 3, 4 different cycles like this. And John, you just started to get onto it, but I mean, what looks similar to this cycle and what looks different in this cycle?
Well, it really, again, in 08, I mean, going back and, you know, when you first talked about this, Brandon, when you and I talked about, you know, the cycles of the recessions, this isn't the first one. 08 wasn't the first one.
Right.
Back in 81, there was one. There was, and I forget what year it was, and maybe it was in 81, where the water district pulled all the water letters. You know, they said, we're not guaranteeing water to any new projects after today. And you want to talk about pulling a plug on a town.
Well, 9/11 did the same.
So,
I was going to say that if there was a comparison, I would make, this has nothing, to me, this COVID pandemic can only be likened to 9/11 because it came overnight. Came on fast and it went away quickly. Not that we're out of the woods yet, but as Craig mentioned earlier, when we were in the recession, the Great Recession in 2008 that stretched into 2012, we didn't know when the hell that was going to end. We had no one seemed to know when it was going to end.
Yeah.
And our firm
did different times for everybody as we went through it. But here, we got hit right in the face in less than a week. All of a sudden, we were scrambling to get everybody home working as best we could, and that's exactly what we did. But on the backside of this thing, we've got probably 11, 12 of us in the office now. They all wanted to come back, and we can talk about why that is if you want to, Brandon, later on in this discussion. But
you know,
more like 9/11, if anything.
Yeah, I was going to add to Ed that if I could. I agree with you, Ed. This is more like 9/11 than it was than anything else. You know, I graduated from college in '83. There was a recession going on then.
We got some feedback, Craig.
Why is that happening?
I don't know.
I think we're good now.
So if you're not talking, maybe you
Yeah. No, I think it's coming from Maggie. So the minute she muted, it stopped.
Oh, you're good.
Anyways, in '83, I graduated in the middle of a recession, and I was living in Idaho, and my wife and I wanted to stay in Northwest. We didn't want to come back to Las Vegas, and I eventually just came back here to live with my parents because I didn't know what the hell to do. And I took a job at an engineering firm out at the Nevada test site because I needed to work, right? And so I would say to the young people that are graduating, there are opportunities. Okay, you just got to find them, and they may not be your final home, but your first job isn't going to be anyway. So go take what you can take. You can work for construction. You can go to work in, you know, for engineering. You can do other things which will help you and broaden your base anyway. And then eventually, this is going to happen. We're going to come out of this. I can't tell you when, but I think it's going to be relatively quickly. And when I say that, I say within a year. But you know, so in '83, this happened. I ended up getting a job and eventually ended up working for a number of different architectural firms because it came back. The next recession that I felt really, 9/11 was a blip. 9/11 was 2 or 3 weeks for us. We didn't notice that much. Now the town kind of noticed a lot more, but from architects, we didn't notice it very much. And then the big recession, which quite frankly was the first real big one that I had ever gone through. And we found a way to get through that. And, you know, I mean, that one was a hard one. Our firm was 40 people at the time, and we went down to 8 people during that recession. But one thing that I learned about that is that not to build a big firm again, and to be nimble and to be focused on the kind of work we wanted to do and not just build another firm. And so that's why we are only 17 people now. And is because we know that these things are going to happen. And at 17, I can be a lot more flexible and, you know, potentially keep people for a lot longer than when we were 40, right? So that's the kind of stuff I think as a young professional, you shouldn't be discouraged. This is a small amount of time, and you'll find a way to cobble enough stuff together until we get back to good times again.
Absolutely.
I wanted to add on to Greg's notion that you know, during the recession, we lost, because it was so long, we lost a generation of students coming out of school. There was no question about it. We're just now getting to the point where, well, prior to the pandemic, every school was generating students that were finding jobs in the 90th percentile. I mean, in 2008, it was pretty much mamas and don't let your babies grow up to be architects. We were at the bottom of the list for finding work in that profession, and we fought our way back to, and that has a lot to do with the economy, certainly. I mean, we are definitely a function of how well the economy is going. 25% of the GDP represents construction. So as long as we're building, we're going to be busy. And it's a snowball effect. Obviously, the contractors and the suppliers and the people that make all the components of buildings, they follow us. But we're kind of the bellwether. I think the ABI was down 5% last quarter. Brandon, did you get that statistic from AIA?
20%. That's where the stats earlier I talked about. Yeah.
That seems to be extremely high.
I thought there was a new index yesterday.
We're probably higher than they were in the last couple of months, so that's a frightening number. I guess we need to really pay attention to that because that can lead to even further layoffs, I think, in a lot of the firms. John, have you had to lay off anybody? I'm just kind of curious, or Craig?
We qualified for the PPP, the CARES Act, and I would trust that others have as well.
Yeah, we have not laid anybody off right now. We got the PPP loan as well, and that's one of the first things we made a big decision, is that it took us so long to build the quality firm again after the recession.
Right.
We certainly don't want to lose anybody, and we have a really good team right now, and God knows, you know, how hard that is to have that. And so we're going to do everything we can to not have to lay people off. I can't say it's not going to happen for sure, but we're going to fight it out.
Yeah.
Good.
So I want to turn a little bit, and we've had Maggie join us since the beginning of the call. So welcome, Maggie. I'll briefly introduce you and kind of kick it right into a question because we're right along that spot in the talk. But Maggie Allred is the HR director with Bergman Walls. So I'm relying on her for a lot of the kind of technical speak, and that's where I wanted to kind of offer a chance for you to jump in and just give some thoughts. And really, I mean, say there's people on this attendees that are in a position where they did just get laid off, or their boss is talking about that as a real life potential in the very imminent future. And I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to see, what is it, the things they should be doing? What are the things they should be looking out for? What are their rights and responsibilities as employees being either let go or furloughed or reduced? So Maggie, you're still on mute, Maggie. There you go.
How's that?
Very good.
Okay, I apologize for the difficulties.
Hey, Randy, are you able to mute Maggie's other position there?
You know what? Let me move away from my
It
computer.
is muted. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
very good.
so apologize for that. Yeah, so it is kind of a tricky time at the moment, wondering where our future is going for all of the firms. It seems like several firms have qualified for the PPE, so that gives you some security through the end of June anyway. How busy everyone is a challenge, of course, keeping everybody engaged and occupied. And when you're working remotely, it's even more of a challenge to stay connected, but hopefully firms are taking care of that and reaching out to employees, giving them projects to do, keeping them engaged. I'm not sure how many firms have returned to work. I know Bergman Walls were all working remotely and probably will be for the foreseeable future. In terms of layoffs and how to give advice on that, so there are two ways to look at it. Some firms do a furlough, and that means they're hoping that they'll be able to bring the employees back. So it's often temporary, like a lot of the casinos started out with furloughs. And then when there doesn't seem to be optimism to bring employees back, then quite often you get let go, laid off. Either case, you can collect unemployment if that's something that does happen to you. The advantage of being furloughed, of course, is that you may be able to stay on the insurance, which is always a big concern for people, to make sure they still have their coverage, especially if they have a family insured. And I would kind of play off of Craig's suggestion too. At this time, it's a great opportunity to hone your skills, to maybe take classes that you've been putting off, your certifications of any sort. It's kind of a time to take advantage of the slowness in the industry and make the best of it. Create some opportunities for yourself, learn some new things, maybe even a Toastmasters class so you can learn presentation skills, things that you've kind of put on the back burner. Now may be your opportunity to utilize your time to the best of your advantage. That's what I would recommend.
Absolutely. Any of the panelists care to elaborate?
Are we on mute?
Yeah.
So I said, with that, Maggie, I would suggest that the emerging professionals, if you haven't had the time to prepare for the ARE, now is the perfect time.
Definitely.
Take the time and do that. And even if I think another way to do it would be to gather some colleagues and put your own study group together so that you really can go about it with some optimism. Because again, staying optimistic about all of this matter, you can go down the deep hole, the dark hole real fast, but let's look to the future. You are our future.
Stay as busy and engaged as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we found in our firm, now we do have work, but we don't have the same amount of work as we used to have. Some of that's actually a good thing, because I think we were working probably way harder and more than, during, because it was busy times. But we started coming up with things that we always wanted to do, right? So, you know, as an office, we always wanted to get our detail bank kind of set up better, right? We always wanted to work on our sustainable resources database. You know, these are things that you always want to do, but you never get to because the work gets in the way, right?
Yeah.
So we've also been encouraging people to write for our blog. And that's another creative expression that is very, very helpful right now. And you know, as a young professional, and say you're not working right now, you got to stay creative in some way, right? You know, if you play music, play some music. If you paint, paint. You know, you got to do something, right? Draw. You know, hone your drawing skills. One thing I will say is that I know that we all talk about computer drawing and all that kind of stuff, but there's nothing better than connecting your brain to your hand and sketching. And, you know, Ed,
Yeah, I was going to say,
Ed will know about this as well, because he's probably one of the best sketchers I've ever seen. But the point is that you can use this time to do other things. And that sketching that you do and that connecting your brain to your hand will pay off dividends when you get back to work.
Yeah.
Let me just add to that, through AIA, from now through the end of the year, we have a whole variety of virtual programs that we are providing. Some of them will be sketching programs, instructions on and illustrations of how to advance that skill. We're also doing more conversations of this kind with emerging professionals, women in architecture. There are just a whole list of virtual programs that we have planned. So utilize the AIA. That's what we're here for. And we are providing those opportunities for you as well. So I hope you will all take advantage of that.
Well, the other thing that we did, and it was a different recession, but in 08, you know, we were furloughing, we were part-timing people, we were, you know, got rid of the plant lady and people were taking care of the plants, you know, to still be in the office. You know, it was just crazy times, but it was, everybody became a marketing person for our company. And even one of the young guys who had been doing work with MGM and had a relationship with the engineering department at MGM was able to create enough work for like 2.5 years to keep himself busy with the MGM engineering staff, just fixing and doing the small stuffs that MGM they just needed to be done to keep that place going.
Yeah.
And you know, again, taking some initiative and creating work instead of just being one of the kids in the back and just, you know, being, you know, here's something, go draw this up. It was amazing, you know, and that's what, anything you can do. I mean, all the things that were mentioned are great things to help. Whatever happens, any of these bad experiences, you're going to look back with pride and with stories, and we can tell some stories. And you end up, if you come through it, it only helps you.
yeah, you will come through.
You know, John, I just want to bring up, that is my story. I was working at JMA Architecture, and I think it was around 1985 or 86-ish, and I remember looking over and, uh-oh, that guy was no longer there, and then I'd look over at that desk, and uh-oh, that guy was no longer there, and we didn't have that much to do. I sensed that, but it was the first time I'd ever gone through that since I'd been working, right? And so at that time, I said to myself, you know what, I grew up here, I know lots of people, I want to see if I can go find some work. And that's what I started doing, was picking up the phone, calling people, calling all my dad's friends and others, and just doing the cold call thing because I didn't know anything else, right? You know, I didn't know what else to do. And so I was doing it and eventually started bringing in some work. And I remember I kept saying to myself, you know, this is the path to partner. Actually, is if I can bring the work in. And it didn't happen for me at JMA, but I got recruited by Ray Lucchese because of my marketing skills to come over there, and that kind of changed my whole career. and got into more marketing than I did architecture. But it was more about a survival thing. And then I realized how much I enjoyed it because it was creative in a different way.
Right. And Craig, I got to piggyback on all this because it's exactly, you say that's your story. It tends to be most of ours. In 1981, when I graduated, and John, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a company in Fargo by the name of Maintenance Engineering. They were the light bulb folks. And I can't tell you how many people I applied to when I come out of school. We actually did some solar work for a while. We made a little company. But after, when the tax credits for solar were revoked, we had to go find work, and there was still nothing around. So I went to work for Maintenance Engineering as a commercial artist and a photographer. Does anybody think I haven't used those skills later on?
Oh, yeah.
That helped me get my first job because I could lay out things in a marketing fashion or a presentation fashion because I had a good eye for that. I was taught by my colleagues in that firm. So the creative side of that, Craig, you're absolutely right. It's still coalescing all these ideas into a workable solution, whether or not it's architecture or whether it's the graphic form. So those are the things that we all have to be mindful of. Stay creative, keep working on your craft in all kinds of ways because it all gets used in the architectural practice at one point or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Great
true.
responses.
Yeah.
You know, at Bergman Walls, we now have a competition going on, a design competition just within the firm. It's to design a casino and a hospitality project, which of course is our core business. But that's helping everyone because they're going to work on parts of the casino or hotel that they may not have normally worked on. And we have drafters and interiors people working together, and it just gets some creative juices going because you obviously don't have a client to worry about. So you can, you know, take it to great lengths if you want.
A great project, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great responses. You guys kind of led right into the next question. And I think the only follow-up I'll put on this is other opportunities out there. I mean, you guys mentioned some of them going to the smaller engineering side, other creative industries. There's some taboo, I think, about going either the general contractor route or becoming a project manager for a public entity. Can any of you elaborate on some of those other career paths? And kind of steps your colleagues have taken or your guys' perception of the benefit that provides to your career?
I think our experience has been if any architects go on the construction side, they never come back because the money is usually so much better.
Yeah.
About that, he just joined me.
But I will say that even, you know, going to the dark side or going to any of these other related fields, even for a short time or for a few years or whatever it is, only gives you a different perspective that you bring back to whatever you're doing with it. You know, John and my history go back to Marnell Correo. You know, that was design build back when this town, there was one mechanical engineering, one mechanical contractor, one electrical contractor, one steel guy. You knew everybody. And we would sit with the subs and figure out the best ways to build something as we were designing. And it was not taboo that, oh, you know, when I was in school, it's like, oh no, they're the enemy type of thing. We were a black sheep, but I tell you what an experience to learn with sitting with a roofing contractor or a steel contractor or the crane guys of where the crane, what's the reach of a crane, where's the access, and how you're going to build this tower, and all that stuff. And you bring so much to your design sense, knowing that in the back of your head. So if you have to take a detour along the way, it usually ends up being a good thing.
I would also express that
the notion of I don't see working for contractors going to the dark side, although we keep saying it. If somebody came to me and I was hiring and they had work in the field experience as well as their degree,
perfect.
I would probably give them a nod, all things being equal, because if they understand how buildings go together, that's going to give them a leg up in terms of preparing documents, because they understand that, you know, you can't do certain things just because you can draw it. But I think the bigger story is that we as architects are uniquely qualified to be problem solvers no matter where we go. Some of you work for the Hart Hughes Corporation, and you remember Wynand Lee or Mark Zachman, or even our good friend Chuck Hubat used to work for the Hart Hughes Corporation. These gentlemen worked on the corporate side, and since I work in the private sector, I got to tell you, working for a client who has an architect on staff to relate and to interface with us in terms of contracts and our scope and our fees and ASRs is a blessing. So never assume that because you're going to work for the corporate side or the builder side that that's a bad thing. It's just going to broaden your experience in the built environment to the extent that no matter where you go, you're going to bring so much more to the table to anyone who's looking at hiring you.
You know, the experience that you can get again from a contractor, especially in the financial aspect of, you know, what does it cost, would be a perfect time to really take that upon yourself. And we always said that we understood how to price and cost something at Marnell, given we had a contractor across the room, you know, across the building. But again, the business part of business is something that each of us should have a grip on, and it will carry you through, you know, these really, really tough times as well. So if there's something you can do to hone up on some financial skills, it would be a perfect thing.
That's a great thing. Yeah, if anyone on the call is thinking of this, someday they're going to open their own firm, any business classes you can take now.
Business law.
I never had one, and I just regret.
Business law is a unique response to that, John.
Well, business law, accounting,
business law,
contracts, just all of those things.
I think you should take How to Talk to Your Bank 101.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's things like that none of us were trained at in college, right? That are so important. But I agree with you. Business is important. Marketing is important.
There's so many online classes.
Yeah, there's a lot of free ones too. If you go on LinkedIn, they have that LinkedIn learning thing that got so many kind of lower level classes, which is what you need to start with. They're great.
You've got TSN as well, right?
Or Sarah.
Yeah.
There are a lot.
So I'll position kind of for our last segment here. I think we're right onto that path, in that some of the things we're beginning to talk about, those things you learn outside of a classroom or outside of, quote, traditional practice of architecture, it's things you learn, you know, inadvertently through your projects. And so a big talk, or something that's been brought up, has been mentorship. And so the interaction you usually get from a senior leader to an emerging professional, that mentorship is lost. And so I'm curious, how have you guys been maintaining some of that mentorship role to your staff throughout this? And how do you intend to bolster it as we continue to stay at home? Craig, you want to start?
Yeah, well, it's funny. So my mentorship right now is to the next generation of leaders in our company. That I'm spending a lot of time and energy on that. And so I spend a lot of time with both Jason and Lance on the phone and talk about what, you know, these decisions that where we're at, and what, you know, what we need to think about, what we need to look at. And those two guys are doing a lot more mentoring back to their other staff. And I know they're doing it. I know they're contacting people and trying to do one-on-ones. Right now, one-on-one is a really important thing, and we shouldn't forget about that. It's one thing to jump on a Zoom call with your office. There's another thing to pick up the phone and call a person directly and see how they're doing, check in with them, see what they might need. I think that's a critical component to this right now. It's funny. I was joking around the other day. I said, I've actually had more meaningful conversations with some of the people in the office, or that work in our office, since we've been gone, than I ever did when I was there. And it's kind of sad, because I would walk by their desk and say hi, but you know, now you get on the phone and it's 15, 20 minutes of real something worth talking about. And I think you just need to do that. And as leaders, we need to initiate that. I will tell you that as younger professionals, you got to call us out on that too. You got to reach back to us. We don't always remember or don't always know. And quite frankly, we're dealing with a whole bunch of different issues than you are right now. And so our mind gets scattered, but you call us and we're glad to talk. We really are. It's just that we sometimes don't put as much emphasis on it. It's a two-way street, and we both got to be driving on it.
Yeah.
I was going to say is that John and I were enjoying our time with the UNLV students. And now that their semester has come to a close, we're going to miss them, because we were doing some mentoring of 4 students at a time. And it was a fabulous opportunity to get to know some of the young kids and just see what challenges they might be having and what questions they had. And exactly, Craig, don't be afraid to call us out. Call out. You know how to get a hold of us. Randy knows how to get a hold of us. If someone wants to talk, we're here to talk.
Because we ended up doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, we were doing Zoom.
Because it was, we were
But
rotating.
we truly enjoyed that time with the students.
Well, Craig, you were doing it as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Ed, want to add anything?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, there's no question that mentorship is critical. It's the passing of that which we've learned and all the stories we have built up over the 4 decades. All of us have been doing this wonderful position and profession that we find ourselves in. It's the actual execution of it, and I know you, Craig and John, have been trying to make the best of it relative to the virtual world that we find ourselves in. I'm struggling with that. I think we as human beings are pretty much biologically wired for connectivity. When I have a call with somebody, it's kind of nice to have a conversation, but I can't see their eye contact as much. I can't see their body movements. I mean, this is okay when you've got, most of my folks don't have cameras, so I'm just talking to them on the phone. The other issue I have is that when I'm working with, in the design context, being across the desk from one another, and you know as well as I do, and you mentioned it earlier, that drawing is so critical for me because I think it transports us directly to the place that we're about to, build for our client. And the virtual world, maybe I'm old school, but having somebody across the desk from me working, to me, it's been really difficult for me to conduct the design stuff. So I end up doing it all myself, and that's not any good because I'm not learning. They try, and then I end up, pulling it back. And so I'm struggling with that challenge. Believe me, I'm hearkening back to the time from before. Maybe that's changing for a lot of folks, and maybe they're relishing this. I think the technical side of what we do works pretty well when people are working in their sort of in their individual sort of homes and working on a technical aspect of what we do. But from the design side, I'm struggling. I got to tell you, so that's one of the reasons I'm bringing most of my design staff back here. We're social distancing. We've got the place fumigated and detailed, clean. So we're doing all the things. People are wearing masks and whatnot. But in fact, my designer was here just a minute before we started this lecture, and we're working back and forth with the 3D models. But that I don't know, the one-on-one with your designers. I was talking to Kurt Ventris last week. Same thing. He's struggling with it too. And maybe this is a generational thing, but he's got a full-size model shop downstairs. So they're working on models, and they're like, go build that. Let's put that on. Let's take a look at this. And now he can't do any of that, and he feels like he's had his arms cut off.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you the other side of this. Everybody's saying this is all fantastic. Not always. That's what I'm struggling with, really, to be honest with you. Anybody else seeing any of that?
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head. I mean, it is a challenge. One of the things that I've been kind of excited about, though, is that we since we've been gone, we actually designed a church, and there was 4 of us working on it. I was the one that worked the least on it, but I was included in every meeting, and they were sharing the screen and walking through the model and doing all those things. which for me was kind of exciting because I didn't get to see that at the office. And so that works, but God, I mean, I would comment and I want to just hold the bumwad to the screen, right? And because I don't know how else to connect to them because I don't use the systems. So what I would do is I would take a picture of that. Yeah. I would sketch over it, hold it up.
That's exactly how I would do it.
You find a way, I guess, is the point. And I was able to still communicate what I was thinking. And so, yes, it would have been better to sit at a desk with somebody, probably, but you know, you got to do what you got to do right now. And so you still have to collaborate.
Yeah.
Yes, collaboration is important.
Were you there, Craig? Were you there at JMA when Steve Carr was there?
Oh yeah.
You know how much? See, he would come in early. I don't know if you remember that. He would come in at like 6 in the morning, start working on a project. I would literally just watch him draw. That he was my inspiration to draw the way he did, the way I do. There was no substitute for watching that guy just formulate ideas, execute them, and then delineate them. It was magic. He was an amazing architect. And so I tend to do that for the folks that I have working for me. They just watch me draw and they see how my mind works, but they watch what happens on the paper in front of them. And something happens that's almost magical. That's completely, I haven't seen a replacement for it yet. I mean, I've got one of my guys he's got a touchpad, he's got a beautiful monitor, you can draw all over it. And I've tried it a couple of times. There's just something to the drawing, the execution of drawing that doesn't.
Yeah, you're not comfortable with the tooth, right? I mean, drawing the tooth of the paper that you're drawing on is so critical to doing what you do. And it's not the same thing to draw on a screen, but you know what? You still got to do it.
I know. And that's, like you said, it may be a generational thing, but for me, that's the struggle I'm having right now.
Yeah.
So
it is.
It's Mein Kampf.
John, you got something to say about that?
All right, well, guys, we're starting to round out at an hour. So we have one question so far, and I'd encourage the attendees, if there's any more while they're responding to this first one, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them. But we'll begin to wrap up. We had one question. How do you see people's inclination to stay closer to home versus making the, quote, pilgrimage to Las Vegas for leisure?
Well, we're going to find out real quick in the next 2 weeks.
Ask that of Frank Fertitta. Let's see what he thinks.
What's that?
Well, the casino owners, they're the ones that are really bad. But you guys talked about gaming as being sort of 30% of the thing. It's the entertainment. We missed the sports aspect of what we've been building in this town for the last, decade. I mean, those kinds of functions are some of the things that we're predicating the success of our economy locally here. I mean, we put a lot of investment into that new market that we've been missing. And boy, I tell you what, if we can't parlay that, leverage that quickly, there's going to be hell to pay.
I think if we build the public trust like we're doing and open slowly, and we don't have another hot spot, I think it will come back and it'll come roaring back. I mean, if people are flocking to the Lake of the Ozarks right now, they will be flocking to Las Vegas because there's more here. I think there's pent up demand, and as soon as people say, I can leave my house, I'm going to Vegas. And I think they're going to. We have to do it correctly though. And I'm kind of happy that the governor is doing this a little slowly. I know it's way slower than some of the casino guys want to do, but at the same time, we can't afford to miscue on this. Everybody's lives are too dependent upon doing this correctly. And we do it correctly, things are going to be good. I had an interesting, somebody told me an interesting stat the other day that if you remember, we compare this to the Spanish flu, and but the Spanish flu was followed by the Roaring 20s. So I kind of hold that out to say that that was a reaction to being quarantined, and the Roaring 20s were very, very boom time in our economy. And I see we're going to have that again. I really do believe it.
Optimism.
Well, look, Disneyland opened up right after the Salk vaccine came out for polio. And you talk about a gamble that he made, because people were not going anywhere before that.
Yeah, we need a Jonas Salk right now.
Yes, we do.
We're working on it. A vaccine is going to be terrific for building confidence, but again, a vaccine doesn't really have any effect on anybody for the next 4 months if you had one today, because it takes that long for the antibodies to build up. So what we need some new antibody therapeutics that they can treat folks to keep the healthcare system from being overloaded. That's our real goal.
I got to believe we have the smartest people in the world working on this stuff. Somebody's going to figure this out.
Yeah, they will.
Right.
But, you know, Craig, what you said was so right about opening up slowly and staying on top of it here. We're probably fortunate, and it's feel bad for the airline industry, but, you know, when you see Lake of the Ozarks and Florida beaches in Texas, the last thing we need is to have 3 million people show up on a weekend here in Vegas. You know, we need it to be slow and let it be California come in, but all the international flights, that's not going to be happening anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah.
And that might be a good thing. That's a good thing.
I think it's a blessing of the season, like I said. And with the temps in the summer, it's a slow time anyway.
Yeah.
And therefore, let's just.
You know, if the hotels are going to keep rooms out at a commission for a few days after they get disinfected and rotating them, and I mean, there's a whole mindset that's going to happen.
I listened to one webinar this morning that they talked about sealing the room after it was sanitized.
Yeah.
Letting it sit for like two days. I said, it's the good housekeeping seal coming back, Randy.
No, I always heard, and I always, you know, I would travel with Bob Bogner, and I don't know if you guys know who Bob Bogner is.
Oh, God, I do, yes.
And I'm just going to high school with Bob he went to the other high school in our town, and he was a few years older than me. But we would travel, and he told me, and for everybody on the phone, Bob was like a key employee at Boyd Gaming forever. He grew up in Boyd Gaming, and he was Boyd Gaming. And he said we would travel, and the first thing he would do is make the housekeeping take the bedding out of the room. Any beds before the duvets, the bedspreads and all that, he wouldn't even go in the hotel room until they were physically out of the room. And he says, John, he goes, don't ever use one of the drinking glasses they leave in the room. Don't ever, he says, the dirtiest thing there is on the planet. And, you know, you have all those things, you know, that you just go to a hotel room. I mean, the dirtiest thing in there is probably the remote control, because everybody touches the remote control, and you don't know who had the flu that was in there the day before or whatever. So these rooms are going to be the cleanest things you ever had now, because they're going to go in and disinfect crazy.
They're going to be doing slip covers on remotes, is what I heard this morning.
Yeah.
They're going to be doing everything they can to build confidence in the travel.
Yeah.
No question about it. Planes, same thing.
Yeah.
They've got to do everything they can.
They are.
We're walking around in a very sterile environment here shortly.
But if they let people be on planes without masks.
Right.
You remember after 9/11, I go, this is the safest time to fly, because it ain't gonna happen again right now.
Yeah.
And you know, we adapted after 9/11. There were some changes made to our airports. There was changes made to our behaviors.
TSA.
We're gonna see these things again. You know, we're gonna have a TSA and a CDC guy now at the airport. But you know, whatever it is, I don't know yet. But we are an adaptive species, and we are going to, as humans, figure out, because that's what we do. That's why we're still around.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'd like to, we'll bring it back together here and kind of close this out. I want to be respectful of our attendees and your guys' time also. So this has been a great discussion. I think we covered a lot of ground. And again, I want to thank each of you for joining us. I'll give you guys each maybe 30 seconds. Just what's some last takeaways or words of wisdom for emerging professionals? the Johns. Do you guys want to start?
Oh, what was the question? I'm sorry, Brandon.
Just 30 seconds, some closing remarks.
Well, you know, again, this could be an opportunity. You know, it's bad times and everybody's journey is going to be different, and some journeys are going to be harder than others. But everything in life is all about how you choose to react to things in your life, because the only things you can control is you and how you choose to react. And that's about the biggest secret to life that I've discovered. So it's how you choose to react to it, and use this as a time to educate yourself or to grow or to find an opportunity or experience, or even doing something professionally that you never thought you would, but you know what? Hey, I really like doing this. And open yourself up to new opportunities.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to practice your creativity. You're going to be surprised what you may have hiding there within you. And with creativity comes collegiality. And again, you know, we've always said this about our community, is that we in this profession are colleagues, and we may have to compete once in a while, but collegiality, collaboration, all of that, reach out to one of your fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maggie.
Yeah, I'd like to segue on that, actually, literally. It's a very challenging time for all of us in a positive way, but also a negative way. I believe that, you know, a lot of us are losing our motivation, our connection with others. There's a lot of people, you know, working remotely that are a little bit isolated. So you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help, to reach out to your colleagues, your boss, your friends, any of us at AIA. If you're struggling at all and need someone to talk to and work through this, because we will work through it and we will all get to the other side, but it's easier for some people than it is for others. So don't be embarrassed or ashamed or afraid to reach out if you need to talk with someone and just talk through your feelings and emotions and what you're going through. And we'll all be better for it when we emerge from this interesting time.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maggie, I would like to say thank you for saying that. Yeah, the AIA is here for you. We are your resource. We are your partner. And as I said earlier, we have planned a number of really excellent programs for everyone to participate in, all of our members, but specifically for emerging professionals and those of you who need to have something to use your creative forces for. One thing we're doing in July or August, we are planning to do a charrette, online charrette, which is very exciting. With regard to designing in the new normal. So we would like you all to participate in that. And in the meantime, give us a call. Kelly and I are here always. And we want to be a help to you and a resource for you. So, and in the meantime, stay positive and stay safe.
Randy can connect the dots.
Yes.
Craig, did you have any last remarks?
Yeah, you know, one thing I'll say, this is not like 2008. So I know you hear all the horror stories about that. It's not the same. It's going to be better. We're going to get out of this faster. What I did in 2008 when I almost lost my business completely, I said to myself, what is my BATNA? And BATNA, best agreement to negotiate, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And I sat down with my wife and my kids and I said, what's the worst thing that could happen? Right? I could lose my job, I could lose my house, I could lose my car, but if I got my family, it's all okay. And so that's what got me through that. And I would say that if you do that now, say, what is the best thing, you know, what's your BATNA? And if you can live with that, it's going to be okay. Find that spot that you can remember, because what that does is it allows you to exercise your gratitude muscle. And the more that you exercise your gratitude muscle right now, the better it will be, and the faster this thing is going to go away.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good, yes.
And Ed, final remark.
Oh, well, first of all, I want to thank Brandon for doing an excellent job here
Yeah.
emceeing us. You missed your calling as a news telecaster here. And Randy,
It was the background that did it, right?
my guess is Randy put you up to it, so congratulations on that. But I think it's
Thank you,
important.
You can never say no to Randy.
It's hard to, trust me, I've tried. It's futile.
It's impossible.
But as a member-driven organization, I think that we all have to be grateful for the services that Randy continues to provide to us over the last, how long has it been, Randy? 30?
6 years.
A long time. And so, and we're, for lack of a better word, we're kind of tribal. I mean, you ever run into somebody anywhere else on the planet, you run into them, it's like, you're an architect. I'm an architect.
I had to
We have that camaraderie, and we can, together as a collective, we can accomplish it. As everyone was saying earlier, we're going to get through this. There's no question. Our billings are, you know, I think the ABI track, we dropped 3 points
there.
the other day, or this last month.
I started there.
We're starting to see work coming in, so that's a bright spot. So again, 60 days have passed here, and we're starting to see new work coming in. So that's a positive thing that I want to leave with everyone here. My guess is we'll start to hire a few more folks here in the next quarter, if that continues. So that's one of the things I want to leave all of you with, and just to say thank you for all of your time and effort. And I think that if we can all work together at the end of the day to sort of to take that construct we all been talking about in terms of flattening the curve relative to COVID-19, our job will be to flatten the carbon curve, to get back to the original initiative the AIA was talking about in terms of climate action. So that's the thing that I think we all need to start working on together. And no matter where you're working, that should be your mission statement. So thank you all for having us here today.
Yeah, again, I want to thank all of our panelists, and Randy and Kelly both put in a lot of work for putting the webinar together and a lot of the marketing materials. So thank you to you two as well.
Thank
And
you.
with that, that's the close.
Stay well. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
You said,
Nice job, Brandon.
good job.
Thank you all. Great job, Brandon.
No.
I hope all enjoyed.
Adios.
Learned a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Miss everybody.
Bye.
Have a good day, everybody.
All right. Stay safe.
You too. Good work, Brandon.